Hello and welcome to the Sports Box. And it was indeed a very exciting game week yesterday. So both Man United and Chelsea had their fates hanging, and I feel it's really sad that it has come to a point where clubs like Chelsea and United are fighting for top four because I'm not used to having competition between Chelsea and United for getting into the top four. It's mostly been for the title or maybe the Champions League or bigger competitions. But I mean, it's both of us. I'm pretty sure are relieved. Puneet, you as well, because we made it to the top four. But I don't think we'll be celebrating this because. I don't think it is that big an achievement for either clubs. Probably given the circumstances, how United had a very poor start to the season. Chelsea had their own off the field issues to deal with the transfer ban and a lot of other stuff. So I do understand why a lot of fans are very excited, but at the end of the day, I also realize that it is not the levels that both these clubs should be at. This is not acceptable. I think United have been stuck in mediocrity for a while now. I think because apart from those two trophies that they won under Jose, I don't remember them doing anything noteworthy. They did finish second once, which was again one of their better achievements, but that too was like the record margin for the biggest gap between first and second. So what are your thoughts, Puneet? Obviously, very relieved after that game against Leicester, I'm pretty sure. And
Yeah.
I think because of the injuries, it became easy. But United didn't make it look too easy. If you actually have a look at the game, it should have been a foregone conclusion considering the number of injuries they had. But what do you think about United's performance? But the result obviously is excellent. And I think that at the end of it, no one cares about the performance as long as you make it into the top four. But I would want to know your thoughts on the performance.
So I did not expect generally because I've seen United now for the last 3-4 games, and I did not expect United to play free-flowing football. I think that is because the likes of Maguire and Bruno and even Marshall and Rashford, for that matter, are extremely were extremely tired, and they've been playing right from. I think they've played every match. They've started every match since lockdown, and the period of 2 months where they've just continuously played a good part of 10 matches, 10, 12 matches. So that had an effect, and that was showing. And obviously, teams started to figure out as to what's going well for United and how to play against them. So that was the expect. Uh, One, I was happy with the victory and the result. Two, I was happy because yesterday's match was one such match where it was visible that United were rugged. United were not in their flow. These are the matches actually when you have to win, and these are the matches when a team is not playing, and when you actually come out with 3 points or come out with a victory is what defines a longer season. So that is a positive for me, to be honest, and I take it in a separate context. Uh, Coming back to the fact that from where now from here, uh, a long road again, and which has to start from the transfer window. Chelsea have started dramatically well. They literally have secured their. I think now they are on par with Liverpool and Manchester City in terms of attack, definitely because of the kind of depth they have on the bench as well. So now when you're competing for 2, 3 competitions, at least the attack is sustainable, and if a Werner goes, there is a Giroud slash Tammy Abraham. If a Ziyech isn't playing, there's a Willian. If Pulisic isn't playing, there's a Hudson-Odoi. So there's a good level of quality being developed even on the bench. So that is what one United have to strive to achieve. The likes of Grealish, Van der Beek, Sancho are being mentioned. I think Sancho is first team. I don't think so. He's going to be on the bench. So that is what has to be achieved in terms of attack. Then comes the defense. I think the defense won Liverpool the title, and that is what has been doing very well for them for the last 2 seasons. Um, Both Chelsea and United, and you would elaborate more on that. So from the United front, United are going to uh, sort of have to look into the market for another left back and another centre back and a midfielder. I would actually prefer a CDM and a centre back as first priority, apart from the left back, because I think Matic's legs might go again next season at any time, and then again you have a massive challenge in who, because Matic's positioning when he's playing well, he's extremely good. When he's not playing well, then there is no other option but to bench him, and this is where I feel United will have to look into in the long term. And the only place they have to look like they have to go is to build up from here. You cannot again expect a season where you don't come in the top four, because all three teams in and around, even Leicester would improve. Trust me, Leicester. If you see on paper, a number fifth for Leicester means they have done really well.
Yeah,
We
I,
knew,
I personally feel if Leicester had a little more squad depth, they have a
yeah,
very good starting 11, but because of the injuries, and I don't think any other club has had such luck with injuries that in the business end of the season, a lot of Chelsea had a lot of injuries in the initial part of the season. United has had their fair bit of injuries, but when it came to the latter end, the business end of the season, most of these injuries sort of got okay. The players recovered and they,
United lost Rashford and Pogba as well.
yeah. So the point being that uh, Pogba was a bigger, longer term injury, but Rashford, played almost most of the season. He did have a couple of months, but then the break came in, and that also helped United
Right.
tremendously. Especially, so I personally feeling that Leicester had a very, very bad run with injuries towards the end of the season. Had it
Yeah.
happened in the middle, because Madison, I think, was their star player
Key
after a
maker,
while,
man. Seriously.
because he was the one who was creating all the chances, and you could see why Jamie Vardy couldn't score in the latter part of the season as much as he
Yeah.
did in the initial part, was because Madison was vital for the way Leicester play their football.
Play.
And then after that they lost. Let's not forget, personally I think that he is, if not better, almost at par with Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's Ricardo
Ricardo
Pereira
Pereira.
as a right back. I think he's
Seriously.
more balanced, probably not as good as Trent going forward, but if you look at the overall scheme of things, he's a more balanced right back, and I think he's one of the best right backs in the Premier League right now. They lost
Definitely, yeah.
him when they eventually even lost Ben Chilwell. Soyuncu
Chilwell.
got suspended, and it was all. I think even if they had Soyuncu, they would have given it a better fight, because you could see that
Correct.
in spite of United not playing too well, whenever they went in the area, you could see that they were not uh, cohesive as a unit, and they were very
Yeah.
nervous. I think even the United defense weren't too good. I think especially Maguire didn't have a very good game. I think Lindelof was still fine, but you could see that nervousness, that nervous energy building around both the teams, and it was a very cagey affair for most and most of the game. And then again, Johnny Evans did a favor to his old
Yeah.
team, and then I think once United went 1-0 up, it was almost certain that the second goal,
Correct.
obviously, for me it was inconsequential, not for the guy who placed a bid on Jesse Lingard not having an assist or a goal in the entire season. But if you look at
Last kick
the
of the season.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
How
don't know how did
unlucky
that
do you have
happen.
to be?
Yeah, but then there are a lot of other rumors that have come in, that not rumors for that, reports that have come in saying that he had a lot of personal issues because of which his form on the field got affected. So
Yeah,
that,
yeah, that's
I mean, that happens. Even Kepa is going through a very bad patch on the personal front. So sometimes it does affect players, sometimes it
like,
doesn't.
yeah, yeah. I think the
Especially,
scrutiny is so high these days that I mean it's become really difficult for players to have an off-field or not have an online
and I
effect
don't
on
really
themselves.
think. Do you think, Puneet, that the players in the current day are mentally as strong as the ones that
No,
played
no,
10, 15 years back? I think it's not
that
only
is very true.
scrutiny; it's also about the mentality of the players. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Actually, I mean the likes of these Lingards and all these players who are on social media, especially, and who are so present. The thing is, it's so fragile when you build something like this, and they don't come from the old school of thought of being being able to build or being able to take the criticism and take it constructively and sort of grow from there. That is a genuine challenge for this generation of players, and that's the reason why I think that is also a reason why you see the dips in form very it's literally like it's either a sinusoidal curve. If they are very good, they're playing very well, but when they're not, that curve is extremely low. So this is also another reason because of the mental strength or the aptitude to grow from that situation. I don't know what else. I mean, a psychologist would be able to decipher this better, but this it seems to be the case
Hmm.
for most.
Yeah, because I remember Frank Lampard in the 08
Um,
09 season, he lost his mom and he came back and, he missed a game against United where Chelsea happened to win that game because of, I remember Ballack scored a brace. And then we were back in the Champions League. He scored a penalty, and you could see that he was not the same person because he was really affected. He was very close to his mum, but his performance didn't get affected. He actually went on to score in the final of the Champions League. So it speaks volumes about the kind of character players had back in the
yeah,
day. Also, again, after United, again Chelsea have been fortunate for that matter uh, to be in this position, because I think both United and Chelsea finishing on 66 points in any other season may not have been enough to be in the top four.
totally.
But
Yeah,
that has actually brought in a point where we're thinking. I mean, United and Chelsea were closer to Bournemouth than they were to Liverpool. So that speaks volumes with respect to the kind of difference there is on the top and bottom of the table. In
true,
spite of the
true,
lower
true, true.
team being pretty competitive, it's not that. I think Watford were the first team to beat Liverpool this season, so it's not that they
Yeah, yeah,
can't turn up on their day or
not
they don't
very good.
have the
Yeah.
quality. But I think when you look at consistency, Chelsea have been sort of all over the place. I think they had a couple of good runs. The only thing is that they were, if you sort of bifurcate the entire season into two parts, they were pretty consistent in both of them. They won like 33 points, 34 points in one half, and 32 in the other. So I think that they've been unfortunate at times as well, because they've been the better team by a mile, and then few things happen here and there. They concede stupid goals, or they sometimes have conceded world class goals, because I haven't seen Chelsea concede so many proper belters. I mean, you look at the goal that Trent Alexander-Arnold scored, the goal that Kevin De Bruyne
Uh,
scored, a free kick that Rashford scored. I mean, they've had
yeah.
some world-class goals that have been conceded. I know Kepa has got a lot of slack, and rightfully so. I'm not really defending him, but somehow there's been this scene where, especially with the dead ball, there have been players who've come in and absolutely rammed in a few free kicks. And again, I think what I liked about this season with Chelsea was the fact that, irrespective of, when we had the injuries in the initial part of the season, then we didn't have Kante for most of the season, who is our best player by a country mile. I think he's the only world class player who plays at Chelsea at this stage. So,
CDM, yeah, man.
not
I
having
think
him
best
for.
CDM in the league, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And Chelsea's only world class. I mean, when you're talking about world class players, you're talking about a very, very small fraction of the number of players that play across all the leagues in Europe. So he's like probably in the top 50 players in Europe. Maybe he must be in the top 20 in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
But I'm just talking about
no doubt. Yeah,
a league where there are very few players who are good enough, and United still have a couple. They do have a few players who are up there, and a lot of other players. The younger players who have potential to be there. But Chelsea were only left with N'Golo Conte, and I think losing him was, you know, to frequent injuries. He did play a few games and then got injured. He had a very start-stop season. So I think, considering the circumstances, it was a decent finish in terms of position, but I'm not happy with the number of points that we accumulated, because we could have won at least 3-4 more games. I look at a few games this season. We dropped, West Ham won the double over us. Bournemouth took 5 points of us. So these are certain games where you feel that, Chelsea should have done better. No complaints with respect to the resources we had, because obviously we did call back a lot of loan players. We've given Premier League debuts to 7 or 8 academy players this season in the Premier League, which is massive. We've had the likes of Billy Gilmore starting games, Tomori starting game. Mount has played 50 plus games for Chelsea this season, and he's only 21. So that is something which is, very promising, and it shows that there is finally a change in the way we look at young talent, and the way even United have done a good job playing a lot of young players this season. But United was more of a luxury considering that most of their squad players weren't good enough. So they played a McTominay over a Fred. They played a Greenwood over a Daniel James who was bought in the window, so in the summer transfer. So I think Chelsea had more of an obligation to play them because Tammy had to play, Mount had to play, then Reece James had to come in at some point in spite of the fact that he was injured in the initial part of the season. And they've done quite well for their first season. And I think Chelsea should buy very smartly this season because obviously the players that have been bought won't affect a lot of young players because of Ziyech playing on the right wing. Probably Hudson-Odoi is still going to be a rotation option in my opinion for another year, and then he will probably be a starter because I think he's got tremendous potential, but that injury has probably slowed him down. If he hadn't had the injury, he would have been ahead of Willian by this point of time. But these things happen, and it could go either ways. So I think beating Wolves was again, coming to Wolves. I think I would rather
Very good performance.
face
Yeah.
Leicester than Wolves at this
Actually, I
point
would.
of time because
Actually, you should discuss that, man. Because I think that it was a very comprehensive and
it was a professional
very
performance.
professional performance. Yeah, I felt it was like clinical.
Yeah, and they were very solid at the back. I haven't seen Chelsea defend so well, and they were really compact. I think Kurt Zuma was brilliant. I think he is one of the defenders that we can have next season, irrespective of whoever leaves. There could be a chance that probably a Christensen, Rudiger could leave. Tomori is a younger player, so obviously he can develop further. But one of these two might end up leaving the club, and we might replace him with Declan Rice. So that again is there. But Zuma, I think, is a player, and there's a reason why a lot of top clubs have shown a lot of interest in him. I remember Mourinho wanted him
Jose
at
wanting him.
United.
Yeah.
He may still want him at Tottenham as well because Jose rates him very highly. I remember the season where we didn't play well. We finished 10th under Jose Mourinho and Gus Hiddink. I think he played a very important role in that season. So yeah, I mean, I look at the scheme of things that have occurred this season, and I think that it has been an okay season for Chelsea. But only if they build on it, it makes sense. Because if they don't build on this
Yeah.
season, because I I think you can judge the manager on this season. You cannot judge the team because it's not that what my entire understanding of Lampard as a manager is that irrespective of the personnel, he will play a certain brand of football, which makes me confident of the fact that we have a vision in place. What I've noticed with a lot of other teams and a lot of other managers, so you look at a Jose at Tottenham, there are certain games where they uh, play really well and the football is, good counter-attacking football. They aren't a very attacking team, but there are games where they struggle to sort of go on those quick counters. I look at a United in the first part of the season where they were struggling to sort of play good football, and then this guy comes in, Bruno Fernandes, and he acts as a trigger. Like I remember when Ole came in last season, he acted as a catalyst to get certain good number of results, and then again they sort of he's more of a momentum manager, I think, which is again good. It could be really good if you maintain the momentum for the entirety of the season, but he's not a manager who will have once United lose a game, I think they are very susceptible because if they're in that winning streak, so they don't really get affected all that much.
That's what I said. No, that's why the tuning. I think I was a little impressed with that because I didn't expect them to.
And even with the performance for that
When you play
matter,
bad, no, yeah, when you play badly is when you are actually judged
yeah.
in terms of the longevity of how long will you be able to. I remember Alex's quote like this. Like he used to say that how you perform after a match that you have lost, or how quickly can you turn up from that match is what defines your season or what defines character uh, in a club. And I think that is critical. And I agree with most of your points on Chelsea. A couple of questions on Chelsea here as we are going ahead. So three proper attackers signed. Ziyech, Werner, and Havertz is very close today. Fabrizio Romano has also almost confirmed it. Uh, you've been harping on the point of getting a goalkeeper one and two a centre back, which in the current scenario and expecting firstly which players are you seeing leaving the club on whatever kind of deal, like you had mentioned last time, it could be a loan plus
A lot of
obligation to buy
players.
a
Big
new
list.
head. Yeah,
So
yeah,
first, let me start with the players I think are going to leave. Obviously,
leave. Yeah,
we have a little bit of surplus cash from the Hazard and Morata deal. So Morata will be a permanent Atletico Madrid player by next season. Then we have a Bakayoko who should go out for like 25
it's
to
on your
30.
books, is it?
Yeah, he's still on our books. We have a Bakayoko still to be sold. We have a Jorginho who might leave because Billy Gilmore's coming in and Ruben is fit now. So I think that we're not going to sell Kovacic. He's been one of our best players this season.
Yeah, man.
And with Billy Gilmore coming in, and then we've got Conor
This is
Gallagher at
content
Swansea who
yeah.
could act as a squad player. So I think we are sufficiently packed in midfield. We've got N'Golo Conte as well.
Yeah,
So Mason Mount as
firstly.
well. So too many options in midfield. So I think Barkley is definitely leaving in my opinion because he did have a short spell where he was doing well, but he slows down the game a little too much and he doesn't have that kind of technical ability to sort of play in a team which is highly attacking and highly fluid. I think when the ball goes to him,
Does
he's
Havertz play in the Barkley position? Is he
yes,
that
yes,
in the three? Oh, okay.
correct.
Then it
So
makes sense.
Havertz is a very versatile player, and I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of people are saying that Havertz is probably the best player that Chelsea are going to buy this season. In
Oh,
spite of having already bought a Ziyech and
Werner.
Werner, and especially with Werner is a proper proven goal scorer. He's been doing
Yeah.
really well for 4-5
Couple of
seasons.
seasons now. Yeah, yeah.
4 seasons now with Leipzig he's played, and he scored like I think in 120 league games he scored 78 goals, so which is
Oh,
a
it's a very
great
good
return
record.
for
Yeah,
such a young player also,
man.
but a lot of players and people are saying that the ceiling with Kai Havertz is beyond that. People are expecting him to probably be a future Ballon d'Or winner. That is the kind of expectation. Obviously,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
takes a lot of
Lot things depend.
a lot of effort and a lot of experience to sort of get to that level. But the very fact that you have that ceiling is something which is very, very promising. And that is why I
Mm.
think, in spite of having bought two attacking players who are going to play in the front three, Chelsea are still going in for Havertz because I don't see another time period where Chelsea will be able to get Havertz. Where if we hadn't had the transfer ban, we would have never gone in for that player. And that's what we did with Hazard, and that's what we are going to do with Kai Havertz. And I personally think that he's something else. I've seen a couple of games of him. I haven't watched him a lot. I've seen a lot of video compilations since, and I've seen individual highlights in particular games as well. Because that gives a holistic view rather than a compilation of all the skills and all that. And I've realized that he is. I mean, he's just a delight to watch. He's an Ozil kind of a player with a little more physicality. Who, when he just, I remember Jose Mourinho with a quote that long back when Ozil used to play for him. He said that Ozil is such a player that when he touches the ball, he makes it smile. So Kai Havertz is that kind of play. He's very delicate, very intricate, and technical ability is something which is unparalleled. I don't see a lot of players with that kind of technical ability. So probably he's going to be one of the most technically gifted players, but he also has the size and the speed and the stamina, I think. And he's got flexibility. He can play on the right hand side. He can play in behind the striker. He can play in a three in the more attacking role. And he can also play as a centre forward because he played a lot of games for Leverkusen this season as centre forward and scored a lot of goals. So that was the most productive period. So that gives us another option, especially in the big games where you want, say, a false nine kind of a situation where you want
Oh, yeah,
to get behind the ball. So that is another thing which he has because he's also got the size. So I think Kai Havertz is a tremendous player. And one more thing that I think that in spite of the fact that we have to strengthen our defense, I don't think our personnel is that bad. When I look at a Christensen, a Rudiger, and a Zuma, I don't think they're bad centre backs. There are teams which are competing in the
yeah.
top four and doing better than Chelsea, who defensively have worse centre backs. But I think
Leicester, yeah.
Leicester,
Evans is that.
Leicester for that matter,
Sheffield, Leicester, yeah, they have had better I think, defensive seasons than Chelsea United. So
Way better because they're set up in that way and they've got like a midfield who's been covering for them. I think a part
yeah.
of the reason is that Jorginho is a very limited player. He's a very good player, but he's very limited. He can only play in a particular system where he has a Conte covering for him. He cannot be that sole defensive midfielder. He's more of a regista. Like I remember Pirlo also played in that role, but he always had a Gattuso alongside him who could do the dirty work for him.
From Milan,
Even
yeah.
when he went to Juventus, he had a lot of other players who used to.
Matuidi used to do it
Matuidi
for him,
didn't
yeah.
come in there, but then I think he had the likes of
Marquisio, yeah. Sorry,
yeah,
not Matuidi, Marquisio.
yeah. So I think that Jorginho is that kind of a player and will better suited to some other manager. I think he's a talented player. He's very good at spraying across ball, keeping possession, keeping control of the game. But when it comes in that position, you have to be very good stopping counter attack. So I think these are the three players that we bought. Coming to the other three players, which I think we should target. One is Onana, which I think we are already targeting. So I don't think that I personally think I was listening to a lot of Ajax fans, on podcasts to understand how good the likes of Ziyech is or a Tagliafico is or Onana is. So there was one fan who said, I think it was on, I don't remember the name of the podcast, but he said that Onana has been their best player this season ahead of Hakim Ziyech. Probably Hakim Ziyech has won the player of the season for Ajax the past 3 years, but he said this year I think that Onana was the best player. He also went ahead and said, I mean, I don't watch him day in day out. He also went ahead and said that probably he's one of the best shot stoppers in the game after Oblak. I mean, that is how highly they rate him.
They rate him.
And he gave me a point of reference where he told in the video where he told where he was telling the interview that you look at a game against Bayern Munich where the 3-3 draw that happened in the 18-19 season in the Champions League, and there are two saves that he made of Lewandowski, which you don't expect a keeper to make. For any other, they were basically point blank range saves. So they were basically within 6 yards. And Lewandowski, who's one of the most lethal strikers in Europe for the past, I don't know how many years. So I did go through that, and I'm much more convinced about Onana, and the very fact that he's available for 30 million euros is an absolute deal. 30 million euros for a world class.
How old is he?
Huh? He's
How old is he?
24, I guess. He's young.
Oh my God.
He's a steal. He's an absolute steal. I think the Czech and Lampard should be on the first flight to Ajax and get him back, with them, because he's that good a player. You can't. This is daylight robbery. Yeah, he's 24. It's
you're sorted for at least 7-8 seasons after that.
Exactly.
Or at least
and he is that good because one of the problems, I think, even the problem that De Gea, even at his best, De Gea was never a guy who commanded his box. He was the best shot ever. But Onana is stacked. He's a really beefed up.
Okay.
So if you look at his frame, it's something which will intimidate strikers, and he comes out and he commands his area. A weakness that he has is that he does tend to overplay the ball at his feet. He's good with it, but sometimes he takes it a little too far. So he may be prone to a couple of errors where he gives the ball away to the opponent. But apart from that, I don't think that in this current market we can get a better keeper for that price. And no one's in for a keeper right now.
30 million is really cheap.
Unopposed, Onana, I think that is a hands down. It's a transfer with Chelsea. If they don't make, they're stupid. I think in this current market, if you don't replace Kepa, which is our number one priority. If I look at the priorities right now, after even forgetting Havertz, even if we don't sign Havertz, we need to sign a goalkeeper first. Forget a centre back, because we've conceded a lot of goals which could have been saved. So if you look at the statistics, Kepa may not have a lot of errors leading to goals as much as Adea will, but he has let in a lot of goals which most keepers would have saved. If you're getting it, these are saves which you're supposed to be making at least 50% of the time, and he's sort of missed almost all of those balls. So that is one part of it. Then I look at centre back, and Lampard is really interested in Declan Rice, who came up to Chelsea ranks, and he was at Chelsea till he was 14 or 15. He was in the same match as Mason Mount. in the best of
Yeah.
two. And I was looking at his stats as well to understand how good he is. And I just realized that he has completed the maximum number of successful tackles this season, and his conversion rate to the attempt from the attempt to the attempted tackle to the successful one is more than 70%. It's close to 73%, which is way
Mm.
more than any other player playing in the league. And he's not been playing at centre back right now. He's playing in that
Yeah, he's been
holding
CDM. Yeah.
role, yeah, as a CDM. But I think that because of his physical stature, one, and his how good he is on the ball, he's very good on the ball. But I don't think he's that player who could ping in those 70-yard passes all the time, which a CDM is supposed to do. He's not as technical as, say, probably what a good CDM would be. So if I'm looking at a Kante,
So
I
you're
don't think
champion on something. Yeah.
Xabi Alonso is a different league. But yeah, again, he's not that
In terms of
great.
the passing ranges, I
Yeah,
was talking.
exactly. Passing ranges. I mean, the only defensive midfielder which I personally think that is supposed to be that good is Calvin Phillips, who's going to play in the is going to play in the Premier League next season. He plays for Leeds. He's a terrific player. I rate him very highly. I've seen him ping in those long balls like a Pirlo or like a Xabi Alonso, and not a lot of clubs know about him. Villa wanted him for 25 million. He chose to stay at Leeds because he's a big Leeds fan, and he was, that's another story which people don't talk about because it was in the Champions League. But I think he's one of the best uh, midfielders in England right now. I would say I would. A lot of people are saying that who watched him play in the Champions League championship. But if you watch him play next season, you'll realize how good that player is. So yeah, I look at Declan Rice as a good centre back option because I don't see a lot of centre backs who are actually good. I mean, probably a Nathan Ake, but he's not tallest, so that could be a hindrance when it comes to that position. I think he's 5'10", 5'11", and you need like a 6'2", 6'3" centre back in this league. Yeah, my personal opinion. There's John Stones who's available, who again is
I don't think so he's that good. Yeah.
yeah, he's been going through a very bad patch of forms in the past 2 seasons. So I don't see John Stone making it. Who else do you think? I mean, in the Premier League, if you're looking at
Like, even I don't see so because even United are looking at centre backs, right? So the names that have been linked are the likes of Koulibaly and Romagnoli. Apart from Ake and Mings, I don't personally think is that good
he's
a
not
centre
good
back.
technically. I think as a defender, he's really good, but
But
you need to be a
that's the
ball
thing. So I
player for
think
a big club.
exactly. Then who else do you sign, right? I think these players are being only targeted because, especially Ake, because they know that Bournemouth is gone. I think Bournemouth has a couple of decent players who can actually step up and become second, third. Because I'm hearing so Norwich as well. Cantwell is associated with. I mean, is being linked to Liverpool. They are linking Brooks again to Liverpool. Liverpool obviously being
Which
linked to
is
yeah. So these are really linked in terms of the ones that have gone down. So these names again, if you go through United's list, it's going to be the same. Um, United are looking for a centre back and a left back. Apart from getting in a right winger and a midfielder, someone in the Grealish mode. I don't know what happens to Grealish now that Aston Villa have stayed up.
Hmm.
But again, it will begin because of the current scenario. Like in case of Chelsea, the way number of players actually leave is going to be critical. Only then the funding of money, even it has to come. So the likes of Jones, Smalling is already in talks with Roma. Sanchez is approximately a 20-30 million target of Inter Milan. Again, loan plus buy. Um then there are the likes of Lingard, who's seemingly getting the most amount of money, which is obvious because he's the youngest amongst. Yeah, I mean he's 26, 27 man.
what
He's
kind of
still
money are we talking about with Lingard?
so 30 to 40 is what we because Everton seemingly have bought Emil Højbjerg for 25 million, and he's ex I think Bayern, and he also is pretty young. He's not too old if I'm not wrong. He's not more than 26, 27 again.
He's had a
Same
few
goes with
decent games, but obviously when you're playing for
exactly.
Southampton, you don't really understand how good a player is.
Correct. So that is something that is being targeted. So hence Lingard, who has already played for England and is being touted closer to 30 plus and 40. So if we can, so I am expecting Lingard, Jones, Smalling to leave. uh, along with perhaps Pereira on loan. Mata, I don't know how long. I think Mata has been kept also by Ole because of his experience and the kind of discipline that he brings. He's a
Character.
brilliant professional. Yeah, he's a brilliant professional to be inside. So these are the reasons I think that there are a few signings that I think that players that will go out of the club.
So how much
Uh,
money do you think they're going to accumulate out of all these after selling all these players?
I mean, it depends, man. I genuinely think that first start getting rid of them, man. I cannot see another season of Jones on the bench. Absolutely cannot. As a United fan, Jones, Smalling. If okay. So let's go one by one, right? So Jones, Smalling, Sanchez, Lingard. Uh, if Pereira or not, I am not sure. Uh, then Dallo has been touted to, and I'm surprised why his name has come, but he's being touted again to leave the club. So then I do expect 100 plus million to come from these 5 6 players because any of the the likes of West Ham, the likes of Southampton, these guys
Even
will
the
actually
current market, you're expecting 100 plus.
for 5, right? That's 20 per player. I don't think so. It's too bad. So like if Lingard gives you 30, I do expect Roma have already bid 12 or 14 million for Smalling, and United are holding for around 25. So even if you calculate an average 18 million or 18 million will happen. Um, so similarly, say 18, 15 for Jones, 18 for Smalling, Lingard approximately 30, 35. Dallo again, Dallo is very young. He's 2021. So if you're letting go of such players, then I'm genuinely expecting 100 plus million to come from these 5 players at least on an average of 20 each. So then you can actually bid for one player more who's world class and who can come in the center back. But like you said, who do you get? I don't know about Koulibaly. I was just seeing a Napoli stat which said he's not started most games under Gattuso, and I don't know what kind of a form he's in. Perhaps an
Was it
Italian
was
expert
it
could say.
a personal issue that he's having? Because that's pretty much possible if Gattuso is at the helm. Because
Yeah, I think he was number one under Ancelotti, right? So as soon as Gattuso came in, then he sort of did not become.
but I think
I mean, he
irrespective of
wasn't.
that, he's a top centre back. I don't think we should
Even
be
I think so.
liking
Yeah,
a
even I
Koulibaly.
think so. Like,
Probably
and
I would be
he's
more skeptical of a Skriniar or someone
yeah.
who's been highly built up but probably hasn't sort of performed at that level. And he might be sold as well for say around somewhere around 50 million. So that could be an option for both clubs. I think if Koulibaly is priced out by bigger suitor. If you say a City wants to go all out on a centre back, they might just go in for
City are
Koulibaly.
actually looking at him. Yeah, yeah. And
Imagine
he
the
and
form that Koulibaly will be.
yeah, brilliant centre back pairing. Yeah.
It's
Actually,
crazy.
City is something that we haven't discussed much, but to be very
Yeah,
honest,
we will
City
be
are just a
doing
couple of
like proper episodes on City because I expect them to go really big in this transfer.
same, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. They
They
would
need a
go
proper
bonkers
rebuild.
now that their gas is also sorted.
Yeah.
Now they would actually like splash everything out, and Pep would be like, "This is my team, and I don't want and you expect everyone to leave, like the likes of Stones and Otamendi, all his players. They'll just
Yeah,
leave and churn out like that.
he'll make decent cash. Probably Stones is being talked around he's been priced at around 30 million, which is very good for a failed transfer.
Yeah,
But I look at Chelsea. I mean, I look at the players that Chelsea might end up selling this season, and it's absolutely crazy. So I'll start with the people who are
yeah. I
100.
will be
Batshuayi, Bakayoko, Danny Drinkwater, Zappacosta, Jorginho probably. Did I name Ross Barkley?
no. So
Ross
we were
Barkley.
talking about Barkley, but Barkley is
Yeah,
another
yeah.
one. Yeah,
In this list,
Barkley would actually fetch you the most, I believe.
30. We bought him for 15. He has to fetch
He'll
us
surely go for 30, yeah, plus 30
30
plus,
plus.
yeah.
I think if we live
Easily.
in a world where Lingard is going for 30,
Yeah,
I
man.
think we must go for 50 at least. But I think that's highly unlikely. That's more of an asking price. Even for Lingard, I think even 25 million would be a
Yeah,
decent
yeah. Now they would
price
come back to the yeah. Let's
considering
see.
the season he has had. And then we have probably one of Alonso and Emerson is definitely leaving, who will also fetch us
Hmm.
decent money, somewhere in the range of 20 to 30. Then we have, it's a long list. One of our centre backs might leave if we get another one in. So probably either Rudiger or Christensen on form, but I think that one of them will leave as well. And both of them are not very old, and Christensen is 23, 24 right now. So they're going to leave. And apart from that, we have Kennedy, who's been on the books forever. We have a Van
Oh.
Hinkel, who's been on our books forever. And we have a Mario Pasalic, who plays Pasalic, yeah, whatever his name is, who plays for Atalanta. He'll go for 10 million. And we're almost going to let go 10 odd players this season. So especially with probably another year, we won't be able to have more than, there's going to be a ceiling limit to the number of players you can send out on loan. So I'm not even talking about the sub 10 million players, because there are going to be a lot of those as well. Apart from Danny Drinkwater,
Easy 150 plus, man. Like
I
150
don't know
is a very
150, but even if we get 120, and considering that the cash we already have in hand, I think we could get all our targets. We could looking for a left back. We've been linked to
people.
Tagliafico. We've been linked to Gosens from Atalanta, who's like my pick because he's very good.
Oh.
Offensively. There's an Alex Tejes who's been tutored to
Hmm.
go into the Premier League this season. So there'll be a lot of other suitors as well. But I think he is a top. He's got like 12 goals and 13 assists this season. So Lampard is looking for a attacking fullback. So they are not going to buy a fullback who's going to be conventionally a defensive one. They want someone who's going to be very good going forward and has a basic. That's why Robin Costin fills in really well, because he also got nine assists and 10 goals this season for Atlanta. But he's good in a tackle. He's strong in a tackle. Even Tagliafico, for that matter, he's good in a tackle. So probably I'm expecting a sub 30 million euros the left back, a
Oh,
sub 30 million euro goalkeeper, and then we can see how much money we have for a centre back. Because I'm a big fan of Declan Rice. I personally think that he's got a huge personality as well. He's only 21. He'll probably cost us a lot of money,
he's
but
West Ham's player of the year season as well again.
definitely, you watch him play and the way he goes into a tackle, like he was brilliant against United. I think he
Yeah.
was instrumental in sort of winning the ball so many times from Bruno Fernandes as well. People who are technically gifted.
Yeah, he does that. Yeah.
And when he goes into a tackle, he more often than not there's a 75% chance that he wins the tackle. So that again is very important for a defender. He's good in the air. He's always defending set pieces, and he's good at sort of the transition play. Where you are going into a counter. If he gets the ball in his feet, he'll look up and play a quick pass. So that the attackers can go ahead and play. And he's got a good shot on him as well. He doesn't shoot all that much, but that again, if he plays at centre back, my only concern with him is that he's been playing in that CDM role for a while now. So will he,
Be able to transition.
be able to transition back to the role that he's played most of his life, to be honest? But yeah, if we get these six players, so three of which who we've already almost nailed, I think Havertz is almost a certainty to happen, because Chelsea are ready to spend the money on him, and Chelsea have realized how big a player he is. If we get, say, a Tagliafico, Gosens, we get Onana, and we get the likes of
I think our
Declan
season,
Rice, I think we'll have
in a very good position. Yeah.
this could be a game changer, because I remember Liverpool weren't doing anything spectacular till they were a good team. They were a good team finishing in the top four. They finished in the top four 2 seasons, but till they got an Alisson, a Van Dijk, and a Fabinho, they weren't at that level which they are right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So probably
Absolutely.
What Chelsea have done really wrong in the transfer window, because especially under Antonio Conte, we kept on buying squad players. We bought one squad player after the other. We got a Zappa Costa. We got Emerson Palmieri, who I think is really talented. He didn't really fit in well. Then we got a Bakayoko. Again, he was a young talent. I don't blame the club for Bakayoko, because we got him at a decent price for his age. Then we got in a Danny Drinkwater. We got in a Ross Barkley. All these signings that were made under uh, Antonio Conte are mostly squad players and very average, mediocre players who don't deserve to play for a club like Chelsea. So I think Frank Lampard, the best part about him is that I personally think is that he's decided that he's not going to buy average players. So in the January window, we were linked to a couple of players who could have sort of strengthened the squad slightly. He wanted Hakim Ziyech in the January window, but obviously Ajax weren't going to sell him. So he decided, it's okay, I'll manage with the squad that I have, but I definitely want him for the next season. So that is how he's building a squad. He's only going to buy. He's not going to buy a squad player because we've got a very good academy, and I think that most of the squad depth will come from within.
From
So
them,
you
yeah,
won't
that's true.
really. So that is a big advantage, that he's called in all these loan players, and they've adapted to the league. It's not that any one of these academy players have been really poor. I can't pick one academy player where I think that he has no career in the Premier League, or he's not good enough. He may not be
Hmm.
good enough for Chelsea, but he's a Premier League player at least. Tammy scored 15 goals, which is very good for his first season. Reece James, he struggled a little in the defensive phase in post lockdown, because I think younger players suffered a little more after the lockdown. More
Yeah, yeah.
skilled players had the mentality, but Mason Mount has been excellent. He's been like he's played like a 25, 26 year old this season. So yeah, and again, one last question, before we've gone on for a little too long again as usual. But with respect to United, where do you see them next season if they have a decent transfer window? Say they have a 8 on 10, 9 on 10. They get in a Sancho, they get in a centre back, and they get in a few squad players, because I don't think a Pereira is that good at this point. I've seen him play.
Exactly.
He can be very good, or he can be good and he can be very bad. I don't see a Matic having any kind of future. I think McTominay could add as a squad player. He's a top lad. I think he's got a very good mentality. So I can see a McTominay fitting in with behind a world class holding player, just to give him an option when you can sort of switch between them. But I can see Greenwood, who may not be the a first team starter if a Jadon Sancho comes. So how are you on that?
I
Because Greenwood, I think, is the most natural goal scorer the current Manchester United team has.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're expecting really, really good things. And Greenwood was actually has been uh, scouted for the last 2 seasons by the likes of at least by the people who are able to see United Academy regularly, and Nicky Butt and these and players who actually see them. And he was right from the start when he came, when he was 13, 14, 15, he was touted to be very close to somewhat what Van Persie is, and the way he scores with very short backlift and able to
Hmm.
generate the power. So he definitely becomes our first team, first sub kind of a player
Hmm.
next season with the kind of
Which
season
I personally think isn't that good, because it takes a
it's
little
very
bit
good.
of
Yeah.
pressure off him. Because Rashford, I
Absolutely.
remember he used to be a prolific goal scorer when he came in, and then because of the expectation,
When
he did slow down.
so high, yeah, that is actually the reason. That's one of the very strong. I heard Casper Schmeichel actually talking about Henderson like this, right? So everyone's slating apart from the fact that De Gea has dipped in form, but he still said that he would back De Gea, and he was speaking on behalf of the goalkeepers union, and he said that what he's done so well for one season, two, and everyone has a dip in form. Neuer had a dip in form, Buffon had a dip in form. These top goalkeepers have a dip in form, and De Gea is going through that. And I would actually prefer, if I'm at United, I would actually prefer Henderson to play couple of more seasons at Sheffield, and had De Gea been in form, we would actually have. I would personally have felt that what, get Henderson playing regular football under a Sheffield, which he's unlikely to get. We just keep leveraging and pedestalizing players and putting them into situations where it is very easy for such guys to be go. I mean, once they are already so pedestalized, then it becomes difficult for them to again perform at that certain level. Especially in England, they do that just way too
No,
often. I mean,
I think De Gea is still experienced, but talking about a young player, there's so many young players. John Stones is one victim of that.
yeah,
I mean, if you look at the number of young players who've been hyped, I'm scared of
see
Jadon
that
Sancho as well.
creates a problem, man. That
I'm,
that genuinely creates a problem.
I'm
I
scared
mean, in
that
the
Jadon Sancho might go through a similar thing because he's English.
exactly, because he's been hyped so much. You have genuinely just you're expecting him to just come on stage and start scoring 20 goals a season, which is just practically impossible. No one does that. Like, no one has a season which has 20 goals in the first season. Even the likes of Ozil, who's technically, I think, still the most one of the most brilliant and most gifted players in the world. I mean, and you see the kind of timeline he required, and the expectations are so high. Like you were expecting him to just finish in day out. So that's a brilliant point you brought up. So I think so. Coming back again to the United team or all of this, to me, an 8 on 10 window is only when United buy. I'm hell bent on this. You need to get a Koulibaly, you need to get an NDD kind of a DM or or a CM who's box to box and can replace Pogba, Matic whenever required, or a Grealish as well, and and a left back. Only when you have these three players who can and an Igalo like player who is always secondary to Martial, but whenever called
I
upon. So
think
hence I
Greenwood
think
could
Josh
do that, don't you think? Because
who could.
Greenwood is generally a center forward, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, because of his size currently, that's that because he's just 18. Because of his size currently, he kind of starts on the left wing because there you're not directly under. So, for example, yesterday this happened, right? West Morgan just did not allow Marshall to turn because as soon as he came, he was right on top of him, and only once he got in front and he won the penalty. So that is the kind. I think that is what he's kind of trying to look into someone who can hold the ball and turn with it with pace or take it, and hence Igalo does a decent job because he goes into uh, um, those
He's
spaces
a
or
man
is able
kind
to
of a
at least
guy who's stronger, more physical.
correct and
He's
and
a reference
he's
point
a
for
decent
that matter.
plan B. Yeah, he's a decent plan B. So that is what I think. I would again. So I don't mind taking Igalo on a year's loan again. Definite CB requirement, definite CDM CM requirement. Another option for Bruno and a left back. Only then is when you get a squad which is closer to even for currently I think even closer to Chelsea, because right now the current squad levels that Chelsea have, forget City and United, City and Liverpool, because these both are way ahead. But even for Chelsea
Yeah, after the
to
three
reach
players
that
that
level,
Chelsea
United
have
have to
bought, I think they've sort of gone ahead of
correct gone closer,
United.
yeah, gone
Yeah.
closer to these two teams,
Yeah,
no doubt about
and
it.
further away from United. So United need to
Correct.
get to that level first, and then even I think that I don't know if Chelsea will be competing even if they get all these 6 transfers in and sell all those 10 players that we're talking about. I still don't think Chelsea will sort of win the league next season, but they could get closer. They could probably go in for a. They might be at most a shout for a title contender kind of a role, but I don't think them win. I don't think they'll be winning, and I do have a few. I think more than the defensive personnel, I have my questions over the style Lampard plays, and then the midfield becomes very important because you need to have a very compact midfield. You can't play 2 8s, and unless you're playing a
Yeah,
Kante, and Kante, because of the amount of football he's played over the past few years, I think the pressure on his
yeah.
hamstrings is,
I
he's more
think
likely
we
to
were
be
having a discussion in the group one of these days, and there was some guy who called upon the best players in the last 5 years, and I think Conte is someone on levels of KDB because he's won with two different clubs. He's won season two. I think if
the
you are to look
PFA
at three
Player of
four
the Year.
players in the
I
league,
think he was the
yeah,
PFA Player of the Year under Antonio Conte, above Eden Hazard, which is
and even
big call.
it's a big call. Yeah, exactly.
So
And even at Leicester, I think everyone, even Alex had told that he was the player who actually won
yeah,
them the league,
yeah, they
which
gave
is
it
a
to Mahrez,
phenomenon.
but yeah, everyone knew that
Uh,
how important and
Conte was
Antonio
the
Conte
reason.
was.
Yeah,
So yeah, I do agree. I think having a fit Conte is definitely something which is vital for Chelsea next season. And then apart from that, these transfers that we mentioned, because if the reason I'm also a little high on Declan Rice is because you can fit in both positions. So in case
yeah,
we have another centre back who's in decent form, so say a Tomori comes in and does well, because he did play really well for a certain period. For a couple of months, he was really good. Then his form did, take a big dip, and after that, he's been injured for most of
he's
the
young man,
season.
young. I just don't see people slaying. I can't. I mean, I don't believe people slaying young players because I mean, young players will not be playing at the peak level always. They
Personally, I would be more critical of a Christensen because he's 24 now. He's
exactly.
played 2 years in the Bundesliga. He's been at Chelsea for almost 2 years now, and I think that Ake has turned out to be a better player than Christensen, and we expected to be the other way around because I think he had a terrific loan spell at Borussia Mönchengladbach for 2 years. He played in Champions League and in Barcelona, and on his day he can be really good. I think the problem with most of these defenders that Chelsea have is inconsistency. On his day he can have a Harry Kane in his pockets, and he can have one of the best. Like Zuma absolutely dominated Jimenez yesterday, and I personally feel that he's one of the toughest strikers to
Zuma is
defend
really good,
against.
man.
Toughest
Yeah, yeah,
strikers to defend against in the league, ahead of a Harry Kane or a Sergio Aguero, because he makes a nuisance of himself. He's like Diego Costa, without that
and he
violent
keeps
streak.
roaming in
And
the
he
front,
keeps
like he
keeps
keeps going
getting
in.
at
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
He keeps
And
sort of fidgeting with the defender, and
usually,
you're like, you don't want to come up against a Jimenez, and he generally tends to score against big teams. He's a big team, or at least assist if not score. So I think Zuma is someone I am more optimistic of. If you look at the season that we've had, I think Kurt Zuma has been our best centre back over the season. But I also think that a partnership is also very important. So you may have two individual, like you look at the Napoli, you have Kostas Manolas, who's one of the best defenders outside Juventus, and you've got a Koulibaly, who is the best defender in the league. And
yeah,
both of them haven't been able to form a very good partnership. I remember Manolas was excellent against AS
Roma,
Roma's win
man.
over Barcelona, where he was
Yeah,
heading out everything that came his way. So these are one of the best, probably two of the
best. Yeah, three,
Koulibaly is
three.
the best, and if not top five, Manolas is top 10 based on his previous performances. But they weren't able to find that partnership. And you can have a Van Dijk and a Gomez who have more synergy between them. Although Gomez is not half the player of Van Dijk
He's
is. I,
good.
I think he's a very good player, but he's not close to Van Dijk's
Yeah,
level.
yeah, yeah.
So I think a partnership is also very important rather than having decent individual abilities, and how the team defends on the whole. So I think that because United have had a decent defensive record, because in the initial part of the season they were overly defensive. They were always, their idea was not to concede and then try to score a goal, because they were not very fluid going forward. I remember they used to play, even if they came up against a half decent team, they used to play five at the back. Even so, that was, and five at the back. It's not a three at the back like Chelsea do, and the fullbacks go forward. They used to play a Van Bissaka at right wing back, who's not the
More
most
defensive.
attacking. So it
But
was
that's also because I think the United's case is because everyone figures out the fact that okay, attacking wise perhaps they need to gel more, but they definitely know there are too
and
many chinks in the
they
defensive
spent on the
armor.
defense, so they knew that. I mean, it was also a very smart move. It didn't really yield them a lot of results, but because it strengthened the defense, they thought, let us build on a strong
Yeah,
defense.
yeah.
I think they bought
I
two of
think
the
going
best
long
players
term, it
that were
is
available.
yeah.
I'm not saying I don't rate Maguire very highly, but out of what they could have bought, they sort of bought.
I think Van Bissaka has solved the right back problem personally because I
Yeah,
haven't seen like
Van Bissaka
he's
obviously.
not good going ahead, but I definitely think he's a decent defender,
Yeah.
and that
And
is something which
I don't even think he's played at his best this season. He's been susceptible at a lot of points. He was very good with Palace, but again, he was playing a limited
the
number of games,
expectations. Yeah,
lesser expectations, and that was his first season in the top flight where
yeah,
he was coming into the forefront. So I think that also helped. But if you look at a Van Bissaka right now, I think he's only going to get better from here. I don't think
correct.
he's
Yeah,
had the best of season, but he's still had a good season. He's still been
yeah.
a solid defender, and I would also look at him. If United are to play three at the blank, I would rather play him at right
Yeah,
center
even
back,
I
like an
personally think
Aspilicueta, because he's solid defensively. A player where you see him that he can be a good defender. So an Aspilicueta can defend. So you can put him at left back, you can put him at right center back, you can put him at right back. He's still going to be a decent defender. So that is what I feel. If they happen to buy a player and attacking right back, I think then they could slot him there if they are to play three at the back. That is only. But for a right back, I think it's a good fit.
yeah,
And
actually,
left back again, I think Luke Shaw has been pretty good. I think because the hype around him has sort of gone down, I think that people don't
yeah,
give him a lot of respect. But I think he's a good balanced left back. He's probably defensively he's decent, and he can go forward. He's not one of those, because we've had Marcus Alonso, and I
6 7
know
out of 10.
no, he actually is sometimes even a 7 8 out of 10. But what happens is that he's not the most glamorous player anymore, which he was while he was young, because he used to just run down the flanks. He's got a lot of injuries. You have to take that into consideration. But
Yeah, man.
I look
He
at an
broke his
Alonso. I
leg
would rather
twice.
have a Luke Shaw than an Alonso, because an Alonso will give you goals and assists, but he's also going to be very vulnerable in defense. And Luke Shaw is a jack of all trades, in my opinion. I think that
Yeah.
is why I would, obviously, if you can strengthen, but I don't see a lot of good quality left backs. I mean, there are two types of fullbacks in this day and age. There's a Trent who can attack, but he's going to get you so many assists that you're okay with him making the odd error. Or
Defensive
there's a
errors.
Van
Yeah.
Bissaka who is going to be a very defensive player, and he's not going to give you a lot of assists and goals, but he'll give you that defensive cover. So again, getting someone in between is a bigger problem, because there are very few fullbacks who are good defensively and attacking. I look at Chilwell, I think he's very good going forward, but he doesn't get so many goals and assists, and he's not that good defensively. So the price that
Oh,
Leicester are asking for a Ben Chilwell is way too much. I mean, if the same player is available for, say, a 40-45 million, I would still take a punt on him, considering that he's English. But if I look at his current form and the way he's played, I've realized that he's too attack minded, and either he's too defensive. So it's very difficult to strike a balance, which a Pereira does. A Pereira, I think, I would rate him as one of the best right backs in the league. Not disrespecting Trent, because he's nowhere close to Trent going forward. But if I look at a holistic approach and look at what I want from a right back, I don't want my center midfielder to, I mean,
Correct.
my right back
To
to
cover
rely
up for
on my
me or
right
something.
center midfielder. So I don't want that situation. I would rather have a right back who's good enough on his set, like a Robertson. Even Robertson is
Yeah.
not good going forward, but he's a good
Yeah,
defender.
man.
He's a solid defender.
He falls back way. I mean, tremendously well.
Yeah, and he
He's
can tackle.
excellent while falling
He
back.
can
Yeah.
win the ball. He can sort of break into counter attacks, and he's a solid left back. So if a lot of people would rate Trent over the likes of Robertson, but I don't think there's a competition there. I think Robertson may
Robertson
not
is
be
my
that
side. Even I think so.
glamorous. I would rather have two Robertson than have two Trents, or even one
Correct.
Trent for that matter. I would have a right back who's as balanced as a Robertson, because he'll give the team a better stability at the back, and he'll give probably 3/4 or maybe half of the attacking returns that a Trent Alexander under him. That's sufficient. You don't want your fullbacks to do all the scoring. You've got other players for that in that department. So I think that's about it, Puneet. I think we've gone way too long, but this is a very exciting discussion, because
Yeah.
I think
It's a
both
good topic.
clubs are in a position where they could sort of finally be
I
back
think the good part,
competitive.
I think to summarize this, I think both United and Chelsea are at a good stage. They're not at a great stage, but they're at a good stage to propel. I think you're at the stage where the rocket needs to be lit up. It needs to go up now, season by season. Plan for the next 2 years, till 2022. Plan that.
With your
The,
concluding thoughts, also one last question which I have to
yeah,
you.
yeah.
How important is it to get the business done quickly, because the season is starting almost in, you know, on the 12th of September, which is a very small,
Yeah, less than
time for
45 days,
transition.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the point. Actually, I was reading somewhere that United should actually not win the Europa League. Although I don't agree with that, but I was reading a theory which said that don't United should not win the Europa League, so that your business gets done quickly. Your team has a pre-season and it gets prepared for the next season, because otherwise September and October would be extremely clouded with the number of matches, and there are only three. I'm hearing breaks this time around for international games too. So then even with the likes of players that the top four teams have, all their players go for international breaks. So there is barely any rest that is provided, and hence there also hence the five substitution rule remains. So I think one very critical before August, finish the entire business up. Uh, get your players, get your team gelled up together. I think, especially for the likes of Chelsea, now that they're, because I currently can't comment on United, because I only if Sancho comes then and a certain centre back comes, then when you can say, okay, now they are looking like a top three team, not top two again, top three team again. For Chelsea, you get your centre back, left back, and your Declan Rice, say before August, and you start gelling, and you have a good start, say from September to October to November. Then Liverpool and City are in trouble. Then they know that they have that room to maneuver, that room. Like, what's happened with City this time? By the time it was Christmas, they're already lost to the likes of Norwich. They had a bad game against United. They had a bad game against Liverpool. Then that room to lose matches or not do well just goes out of the window, because now you know you're playing. Same goes with Chelsea. I think Chelsea would have a longer, better season uh, because of the bench and because of the quality that they have going forward. Now, if you can sign up the defensive players and have a preseason with them and start well, then Chelsea are a different beast altogether going in. So the best case scenario for Chelsea is to be very close to the top two coming into the Christmas and schedule in November, and then sort of boomerang, because remember, even Liverpool for that matter don't have a decent bench, and from the reports that I'm reading, if they're not going to spend again, and they have been extremely fortunate, and not wanting anyone to get injured, but the likes of Mane, Salah, Firmino haven't got injured through the entire season. Like, Mane was injured for a barely entire. Van Dijk has never got injured. Alisson got injured. You saw what happened to them. So this is what happens. Yeah. And United and Chelsea have lost players left, right, and center. And so with Leicester. Leicester's primary reason they are fifth is because they have lost players. It's got nothing to do with anything else.
Crazy
So
amount of players.
So that is again, City. Laporte came in only after the first 6 months. So if you lose a Laporte, it's equivalent to losing a Van Dijk. And you see what happens when Van Dijk doesn't play well. Pulisic ran through them, like literally cut them through like the hot knife through butter. That is the deal. So hence, getting deals done early, again for United, getting 3-4 players early, make a statement, start the season well, put pressure, and then see how it goes. I think good stage to be in. Build it from here, and take it a notch up.
Yeah, you're
And
right. I
looking
think the
forward to
seasons. Yeah, sorry.
actually seeing the likes of Chelsea United really give it a go.
Yeah, you're right.
Next.
I think the season starts with the transfer window. So the club that I've seen most of the City teams that have been successful under Pep, when he bought in those players before everyone else. So the
Yeah.
team is already ready. So that sets a precedence. And again, Liverpool, when they bought in those players, they had most of them in before the preseason. They bought Alisson very quickly. Chelsea were also interested in Alisson,
I
but
remember Chelsea's example of Costa, Fabregas, and who was it?
Felipe
One more
Luis.
centre back, Cahill, was it?
Felipe
And
Luis.
Felipe Luis.
But
Yeah.
he didn't
Three
really.
players bought start, and the season was around 20-25 days to go, and the team was bang on front, and they literally like 2 seasons back to back. They had very good. That's how I think that's the best way to do a deal.
I think that is what Lampard and Czech have realized, and they've actually flew down to Germany to sign Werner.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
Lampard was constantly in touch with Hakim Ziyech
yeah.
before he signed. He's mentioned that they were speaking over WhatsApp, and I think even with Kai Havertz, they've been really prompt in
Yeah,
making
one
sure
day
that.
after that, and you have a Romano report, man. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
just
So,
clinical.
so I think Christian Falk from Bild had already reported it, and he mentioned it last night only, that now that the Champions League position is out of way, you can expect speedy negotiation. Probably in a week
Yeah.
or two max, Havertz will be a Chelsea player. Chelsea are also looking at Onana, which should be completed, without a lot of hassle, and then remains the left back and the centre back. So if we can do that, I see that it is possible that probably in the next 20 to 25 days, if I think the centre back is the one which is going to take the maximum time, because we're still looking at different targets, and Declan Rice is the only target that has been named as of now. So I think over a period of time, it is very much possible that in the next 25 days Chelsea will have completed the transfer season. So which is going to be a very good way to start, because your season, anyways, you're going to have a very short preseason. You're not going to get a lot of time to warm up. So that is why we had a Hakim Ziyech joining the team. We have a Timo Werner who's joined the team already. So we have a couple of games to go in the season at least. So let's just wait what happens. And I think personally, it is going to be a very exciting season for Chelsea. I can see United spending a lot of money, but if they leave it too late, like they usually
Yeah.
tend to do, I think that'll not be acceptable this season. Probably any other season, it is all right because you do have a pre-season and you have, some time to get used to it. But this season is because I mean, they're going to buy from Europe, and most of the leagues have played post lockdown, and they've played a lot of games. Unless you buy from a smaller league or a league which has lesser matches, like the Bundesliga or from Portugal or from Netherlands. So, like, if you buy an Ajax player, so they probably aren't that fatigued, but any other team. And if you look at teams who are playing in the Europa League, so if you buy a player who's playing, that's why Chelsea are looking to buy Havertz before the Europa League starts because they don't want Havertz to get injured in the Europa.
Yeah.
That's why they bought Timo Werner, and Timo Werner is not playing in the Champions League, in spite of the fact that him having played.
Chelsea has one of the best systems in place for transfers.
Yeah, they know that Ajax is not in the Europa League anymore, so getting Ziyech in February was like a good. He was anyway sealed, so that was not a problem. So this is the way we should be doing business. This is the way every fan expects the business to happen, and it started off well, but we still are only, even if the Havertz deal gets done, we're 50% done. We'll still need 3 more players, and then the biggest problem this season is going to be selling players. I think buying players will not be as difficult. And if you're buying a particular player is dependent on selling, so I think even Chelsea with Havertz will have exhausted their Hazard and Morata money. So the transfers that are going to come henceforth, probably you can get in one more sub 30 million transfer, but then you'll have to start selling quickly. So it becomes really exciting, and I think this is going to be the best transfer window in ages because it's a very short duration. The European tournaments are going to be played parallelly, so there'll be a Champions League game and a big club is going to sign a player. It's going to happen simultaneously, which has never happened before. And then as soon as the player comes to the club, they're going to have a very tough time they're going to have a very short time to get used to the league and used to the players for that matter before they get used to the league, because there has to be a certain cohesion before. That's why you see a January transfer coming in and they wait for a couple of weeks to sort of amalgamate the player into the team. So it's going to be a fun season and I'm really looking forward to it. And I think that's about it for this episode. Again, I think we've clocked an hour or something over an hour, but
it's been good. It's been fun. It's been really
fun.
Good to discuss.
I hope you guys watch the entire video if you can, if you have the attention span of listening to us for an hour. And if you do like the video, please click on the like button. And also, guys, please subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for your time, Puneet. I think we had a lot of time speaking about our clubs. And we're definitely going to do a lot of content on the transfer window as well. We're going to look at the likes of Spurs and Arsenal as well, who are sort of lagging way behind where they should be. And also a Liverpool and a Manchester City who are supposed to be the top 2 teams next season as well. So we're going to talk about that as well. And I think we'll do a few sessions on fantasy football as well once the FPL players are introduced again. Probably that'll be a month from now. But yeah, looking forward to that as well. All right.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.